Chris Miles here with Mike Fratello, Dennis Scott. Welcome to Game Time. The theme this Sunday, players getting to 40 or more. We're not talking about age. We're talking about buckets. We had two guys do it in one game, and a two-time MVP lead the night in scoring. So let's start with the top seed out west, the Denver Nuggets, starting today just half a game ahead of the Golden State Warriors. And they went to work early and often. Damian Lillard.
Oh, my goodness.
From the logo.
That was from Portland.
Talk about feeling it.
And then Dame, another tough shot. Defense smothering. But he got the bucket to go.
Love the concentration right there. Then Denver gets out in transition. And wait a minute. Trail 5 for the 3?
You got to get out there. You can't let them just square up and shoot it. They learned that lesson the hard way. Will Barton made his home debut after missing 38 games with a groin injury, looking healthy.
Oh, is this guy going to help them now? Not that he needed a whole lot of help. They're best record in the Western Conference.
Well, that help also comes in the form of Nikola Jokic nailing threes. Jusuf Nurkic trying to respond on the other end. Those former teammates battling it out, 53-50.
Yeah, you saw it going at one another.
Third quarter, the Joker pulling out the full deck. And then the nice dime.
4-5 pick and roll, and the 5 throws back to the 4.
About that one.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, 3D, the question about Jokic and whether or not he belongs in the MVP conversation, can you get me a bucket? That's what we've been wondering about him, or his skeptics have said.
Yeah, some people are skeptic as C.J. McCollum shows how smooth he is with the floater.
But you see that score, 102-102 fourth quarter. It's Jokic again, showing he can get you that clutch basket. You know Damian Lillard can.
Must be fourth quarter.
26 for him. Jokic again. Tied game, minute to go. Mouse in the house.
Mouse in the house. Ask for help. It's okay.
Look, the encouraging thing is he took 23 field goal attempts. That's a lot for him.
And speaking of field goal attempts, it's not over yet. C.J. McCollum nails one. Dame Lillard, they're sending to OT.
Oh. Makes you nervous. Anytime Dame has the ball, we know he has range.
And Jokic
picks up the kids. Loves the kids.
So our first 40-point scorer on the evening, you see Nikola Jokic there, 40 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists. In 3D, we saw the full repertoire. We know he's a threat as a triple-double machine, but to see him put up 40, that's been the question about his game. It's there.
The question of his game, does he have the eye of the tiger? Is he ready to go for the juggler, so to speak? Because we know he's a great passer. We know he can shoot the 3. We know he can do all those great things, Coach. But you look at this board right here, all the guys that scored 40 points tonight. The reason I want to talk about Jokic because Denver has gone through so much this year with all the injuries, and he's been the mainstay. He's been the guy that we're all saying, how come his name is not mentioned more in the MVP conversation? Maybe it's his personality. It's because he plays out in Denver. But you look at the stat sheet, you look at the standings, Denver's at the top. Now they're starting to get healthy. Now, to your point tonight, Chris, in the fourth quarter, they said we're going through you, big fella, until they come double team you. To your point, 23 attempts at the basket, not waiting for the defense to see if they would come. So that's why I appreciate his game tonight.
And 4 made 3-pointers.
Let's remind our viewers that Jokic and Nurkic were teammates together. And Denver had to make a decision. Which one of them do we want to keep? Because they couldn't give both of them the amount of time that they deserved. So that's how Portland wound up with Nurkic. But kudos to the talent evaluator for Denver staff to come up with those 2 big guys who were talented and skilled, and both of those teams are winning teams.
And certainly Nurkic, no slouch out there in Portland, holding his weight. Seed in the West, looking to maintain that spot.
He's playing with Portland. Will the 3's play with Portland?
Yeah, Will Barton back in the lineup.
Oh, my goodness, Damian.
And Damian Lillard says, that logo belongs to me now.
It's not fair.
13 points in the first half for Dame and 2 really tough shots. Speaking of tough shots, Nikola Jokic, not tough here, left wide open.
It's tough, Coach, to have your 7-footer to have range like that, passing ability, and put the ball on the floor.
This Will Barton's first home game after missing 38 games with a groin injury. And Barton getting a bucket.
He's an important piece for that Denver team.
So is Mason Plumlee. And, of course, Nikola Jokic. Maybe you'll learn at some point you can't leave him wide open. Started off 4 for 6 from outside, kept it going in the second half.
Nurkic said, don't forget about me. I'm playing better basketball these days.
The Joker playing all his cards. That's the three-point shot. How about the dime? We know he can do that.
Yes, he can.
And then when you need a bucket, can you get me a bucket is the question for an MVP race, right?
Yes.
See that score?
Yes.
This the can you get me a bucket?
I'm starting to believe it, Coach. I'm starting to believe it.
CJ McCollum, one of those can you get me a bucket guys.
Yeah.
And Portland takes the 1-point lead.
CJ smooth.
But Jokic had it all going. Nurkic just giving him too much space.
He's like, I've seen this before. Usually bust me up in practice every day. Ooh, must be the fourth quarter.
26 points for Dame. And again, tie game, a minute to go.
Mouse
Jokic,
in the house. I love you, Evan Turner, but mouse in the house.
Wrong matchup, and Jokic takes advantage. 40 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists for the Joker.
Oh.
Woo!
And CJ McCollum said, not yet, Joker. I'm not ready to go home yet.
18 points for McCollum.
And game time, I guess the clock ran out on his watch.
Tried to send it to OT, and the Joker doing his post-game workout.
Yeah, kissing the baby. Man.
So Denver, again, started the day half a game ahead of the Golden State Warriors in the Western Conference standings.
So if they don't lose the rest of the way this season, Golden State won't catch them.
Every game a must-win for Golden State.
Hey, well,
we
were just teasing before we came out here, like, do we take Denver serious? And the way we went through the highlight is that we need a bucket. So Jokic is that guy. The reason I'm starting to believe in it, Coach, because if you decide to double team him, he's proven to us this year. He's had 16 assists in a game before.
He'll pass it.
So he'll pass it and make the right decision. And Chris, we've been talking about it all night about Kawhi Leonard in Toronto and other teams. They have that guy. When things get tight, you can go through him. I'm really starting to believe. Now you got Millsap back. You're going to get Gary Harris back. Got your boy Will the Thrill back. Now all the pieces are there. Now can they put it together?
Well, the problem early in the year was they couldn't get him to shoot enough. Okay, they wouldn't get it. So he wouldn't put himself in the position you just said that he's in now, where end of the game, we're going to you, get the ball and get us a bucket. Now he's doing that. Well, that makes takes him to a different level.
Certainly that level that Steph Curry is on, and maybe even Luka Doncic these days. You're going to have to wait until after the game to see those highlights. It's getting tight out west. Top seed, the Denver Nuggets look to bounce back against a team with the worst record in the West from last night, the Phoenix Suns. With that, let's welcome in Mike Singer from the Denver Post. Mike, the Nuggets have, for the most part of the season, been exceptional. However, they lost to the Suns last night without Devin Booker. How did the team react to that particular loss?
Nikola Jokic in particular was upset about it. He said that the team took the Suns way too lightly. He said he actually expected them to lose because they were so loose in the locker room, and he said we played their record. Like you said, Suns last place in the Western Conference. That is a loss that is unbecoming of a first-place team, especially without Devin Booker. But before we bash the Nuggets, let's just put it into perspective. It's probably their worst loss of the year, but given that they only have 13 so far this year, I think you can live with it halfway through the season when they finally lay an egg.
Mike Fratello here. Just wondering, this team went down to the final game of the season last year to have their hearts broken. Minnesota went in. They did not make it to the playoffs. What's the difference right now between this year's team and the one that finished up the season last year?
The first thing you have to point to is the defense. Last year, they were among the lower third in the NBA in terms of overall defensive efficiency. This year, they're 10th. The other thing you have to point to is just the organic development of Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Both of them are playing at borderline all-star levels. And then even though the Nuggets have dealt with more injuries than any other team in the NBA, a lot of the role players like Torrey Craig, Juancho Hernan-Gomez, Monte Morris have stepped up and filled these roles. And even Malone said today, no one would have expected that they would be in first place given all the injuries they've had. So it's just been a lot of organic development, guys sort of flourishing in these new roles.
I like that phrase, organic development. So it leads me right into the big man matchup tonight. They played together. One left, one got some new money, one got a little bit of money. How's that between Nurkic and the Joker now? Come on, all the big fellas going to go at one another tonight.
I think they're going to go at each other, but I can tell you, I think Nurkic, he relishes these matchups. He doesn't like how that went down. Obviously, 2 years ago, the Nuggets made their decision. They decided to make Nikola Jokic the offensive fulcrum of the team, ultimately traded Nurkic. We'll see if there's a little bit of bad blood between them, but I think Jokic is too much of a sweetheart. I don't think he really wants to get into Nurkic like that. But, I mean, it's interesting. Nurkic is rolling. Nikola's rolling. It's going to be a fascinating matchup down low.
I was looking at the box score, and I thought I saw a name that has been missing for the majority of the season. Has Will Barton returned?
Will Barton has returned. Will Barton returned last night in Phoenix. He'd missed the first 36 games. He had surgery to repair hip and core muscles after the second game of the season. And Michael Malone talked about the difficulties of reintegrating him back into the lineup after he's missed nearly half the season. And, once the Nuggets finally start to get whole, Paul Millsap returns. Gary Harris returns, only to go out again with a hamstring injury. So now they got Will Barton back, and it's just a juggling match. And whether, Michael Malone can navigate sort of figuring out these roles and how to include the reserve players versus getting them back in the starting lineup. That's going to be the next few weeks, whether they can sort of solve this minutes crisis.
Well, you're leading right into my next question, where now you have all this goodwill because when guys were injured, it gave the bench a chance to get better and understand what they need to do. Now everyone's healthy. Are they really understanding how good they really can be if they want to challenge in the West?
I've asked some of the guys this, and the reality is that they are in first place in the West, and yet they have been at about 60%, 65% of their potential, in my opinion.
Right.
They need the cohesion. They need Gary Harris back. They need Will Barton back. And then we'll see what they can do. And obviously Isaiah Thomas is still sitting there waiting in the wings, and no one really knows if he's going to be able to contribute or in any sort of timely fashion. So I think that there is a ton of potential, as you alluded to, and it's just a matter of whether they can finally realize that potential and get all these guys healthy again.
It's incredible, including drafting a guy like Michael Porter Jr., who was arguably one of the most talented players coming into this draft. Of course, he had the injury, so that's why we haven't seen him yet. Michael Singer, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Good stuff.
Well, look, the Warriors half game back of the Nuggets for that top spot out west, and you saw the slip up last night by Denver. 3D, when you have a team like Golden State in the midst of what we can call a dynasty right now, on your heels right there, does that add pressure to a team like Denver as you're trying to hold that top spot out west?
Believe it or not, Chris, I don't think there's any pressure because they don't know no better yet. And that's why he answered that last question so perfectly. When you had Millsap and Will Barton and Gary had you've had pretty much half of your starters out all season long, and you're still the top of the West. So all season long, I've been scratching my head, Coach, like, how is Mike Malone keeping this? How is he doing this? Is the Joker really this good? Why is his name not mentioned in the MVP? We mentioned all these other guys, and they're the top of the West. Is the West really that good, Coach? How come we're not giving the Joker more credit? So now you're getting all these guys back. The All-Star break is coming. To your point, yes, the Warriors are getting healthy too, but you're still the top of the West, and you haven't been 100% all season long.
I don't want to minimize the importance of Will Barton to this team.
No question.
Will Barton can be a starter. Will Barton is great, sixth man coming off the bench. This guy puts up numbers. He's versatile. He plays more than one position for them. He hasn't been around. They're just getting him back now. When he rounds back into shape, Millsap rounds back into shape. Watch out for Denver.
Yeah.
I mean, when you mentioned Will Barton, played the first 2 games this season, got injured, came back last night. Like you said, he's a guy that they thought, okay, this is going to be a major part of our team, has not been there. I mean, these guys really, look, you mentioned the Joker as part of the MVP conversation. We actually had that conversation about a month ago. And since then, he's scored more in big games. Because back then it was, oh, the Joker's not scoring enough when they need him to score. He's shown that he can do that as well, Czar. I mean, if that's the case, should he be considered more in that MVP conversation?
I think when people take Denver for real, then you may start to hear his name more. Right now, I think people have said, well, we're just waiting for Golden State to get it together. What happened to Houston at the beginning of the season? They're starting to get it together. So let's see now the challenge of these teams that we thought were going to be really good. are now starting to hit stride, and they are really good at this point in the season. Can Denver hold on? Because they'll meet each other, they'll face each other during the second half of the season. We'll see if they're ready to take on the challenge.
3D, try not to get too excited. We know Steph Curry's back healthy, and he's one of the greatest shooters of all time. And you discussed who are some of the greatest shooters in the league right now, and who do you want taking the last shot in the game? We bring you that next on Game Time Live.